Okay, so now you've got a structure, an idea for a structure. You started grouping things together, and you've got a structure. You've got a way you want to relate to your audience. Now here comes the hardest parts. Now you've got to come up with the phrases that you actually want to use in the song. Up until now, it's been mostly ideas. Maybe you had a few phrase ideas that you popped in there. But now you've got to come up with the song, the phrases that really embody the meaning that you want to communicate in your song. And so here are a couple ways you might want to use, things you want to do. You might want to use an artistic theme. I find this has worked quite well lately in my work. And for example, you might want to use, say, a water theme. There are all kinds of ways that water can represent feelings and ideas. In a song I recently wrote, it was an ocean theme. So you had ocean waves crashing, and you had pools being left behind. And some metaphors that came up were like a message in a bottle and being set adrift. These can really embody some of the main ideas or the key thoughts that you've been having, and do it in a really poetic way. You might want to use an alliteration, or many of them, where the consonant or a letter is used repeatedly as the first letter or sound in several words in the same line, and that makes things more interesting and kind of fun. And in the same way, you might want to use some unique rhyming patterns, so more the ends of those words rhyme together in unique ways. And that's just kind of fun. It makes things more interesting too. And because this is so hard to do, I find this is the place where you really want to add some more prayer. Also, I've got a link down at the bottom that discusses this aspect of building your song in a little more detail. Next, just a warning, you want to take care to use good vocabulary. In particular, I'm thinking in cases where people don't have much experience, say, going to church and don't know all of the Christian terminology. You probably want to leave that out if that's your audience, because they may think that, hey, the song isn't for them, or simply it just may turn them off, and you might lose the listener you hoped to have. Okay, so now you've not only got a good structure and a way of relating to the audience, but you got a lot of phrases and that embody some of these ideas. Well, now you need to glue these phrases together that make roughly cohesive verses and choruses, bridges, etc. And this is hard because at the end of the day, you've got to get these verses and choruses to work together. You've got to get the phrases to work together well so that you avoid abruptness, awkwardness. And in that way, it's really important to have good transitions between these phrases. One problem you can bump into is that, say, you've gone through a verse, you've gotten into the chorus, and all of a sudden something pops up that surprises the listener. It's kind of abrupt, out of the blue, maybe a blunt statement about a way and how they should live, or something that just kind of seems to come out of nowhere, or it's not supported enough or led up to enough in the verse that comes before. And so you really have to take care, because when you make those blunt statements or those abrupt changes, unexpected changes, that can be a real turnoff for the listener. So by now you really started to put together a song, and you've been working at massaging things so they fit together nicely and don't cause the abrupt changes. But boy, it's hard work, and I've struggled through it lots. It's the hardest part for me. And you might be finding that, hey, it's just not working. What can I do to improve things? And here are a few tips. Just keep working at it. Just sometimes it takes a little more time. One other idea is, hey, try a different artistic theme. If water didn't work for you, maybe try a financial theme, or maybe a signs and directions, like map type theme. There may be other metaphors in a different theme that would better suit the ideas you want to convey. You might instead just need to sacrifice an entire verse or chorus. It's just not working. You might want to keep the same ideas, but you need to find a different way to say them. And when you get looking at that verse, and for so long, you starting to lose any new creativity, you might need to scrap the whole thing and start from scratch. for that particular part of the song, and that's okay, because it'll get you where you need to go, possibly. And then another thing, maybe you just need to set the song aside. So when I was first doing the research that ultimately became part of Remember Me, I did this research and I prepared this sort of 6-verse type song, and it was like just not good. It just wasn't going to fly. I knew that people wouldn't want to listen to it, and so I just stopped. I set it aside, and after seeing the Passion of the Christ trailer, I was re-inspired, and I had a new focus. I would shorten the time period that I was looking at, and it fit. It worked. I came up with some new words to fit the research that I'd already done, and so I made use of that experience, that work I'd done. Okay, so now let's say you've gotten to the point where, hey, I've got a decent song. There's not any horrible abruptness that I can tell. Nothing that I can't fix up. By now it's not perfect. There'll still be some awkward moments and things, but don't get discouraged. You can still work on that. At this point, though, then I think it's appropriate to start putting the music to things. So I pull out some basic chord arrangements and melodies to suit the theme and the mood. But I'll admit fully that I'm not the expert when it comes to the musical elements. I encourage you to check out other YouTube videos, or involve your friends who may be more musical to help you, or you may know very well yourself about how to pursue this part. You might even want to try some collaboration. There's a website called compose.com, and they set up the ability for you to collaborate with people across the world to develop songs where you may be the lyricist and they're the ones that do the music components and actually record things for you. So it's worth considering. Once you have the basic musical structure, comes what I think is a really important part of the process, and that is refining your song. So, as I said, you may not have it perfect up until now. There will be awkward parts. And so, the thing I encourage you to do is to take that song that you have, go in through the lyrics, underline the awkward parts. As you've been playing the music to it, you've noticed, hey, not all these words are going to fit in this line, and I need to change things. So go through the song and find out all those parts, and on your own, fix as many of them as you can. Make them simpler if you need to, fewer words. Just find slightly different ways of saying things. Maybe choose a different metaphor to express the same idea but from the same theme. You may be surprised how you can really start massaging and polishing the song that you've written so far. But ultimately, you can't be the only one to help you, because there's some things you'll just miss, and you need to get feedback from people. Maybe one person that will really give you some honest opinion and really help point out some parts that seem awkward. They can also give you some feedback, like you can ask them, hey, does the main point that I'm trying to get across actually get across? What do you remember coming out of that song? Was it encouraging? And based on that feedback, you can really go and do some more refining. And after you've done that, the lyrical refining, I say jump in, practice the song, and jam with it. Just enjoy it, and see if you can figure out ways of singing it, playing it that seem more interesting. And even as you practice and jam with it, you might find that there are even easier ways to say the same ideas, so your lyrics will actually get refined in the process too, potentially. Finally, it's time to perform the song. And believe it or not, you can get some good feedback after doing that as well. So you may get the feedback, hey, you did a good job. And while that feedback is positive, it may not be the kind of feedback you need to know whether or not your song was encouraging. Because it may just be saying, hey, you performed well, you sang and played well, but not, hey, that was encouraging. So if you get the feedback, hey, that was encouraging, or hey, that moved me, or maybe you saw somebody crying as a result of what you were singing, that's the kind of feedback you need to see. And if you don't get that, you might want to consider beefing up your heart-changing thoughts, or making them clearer, or just asking a few people that you perform to, what they got out of it. One little word of caution though is when you perform a song, if it's for an event, like a wedding, then you may find that actually it's difficult to change the lyrics after the event, because those people for whom you wrote the song would like to have the song stay in the form in which it was performed at the event, for sentimental reasons. So just some feedback there. And okay, so that's the process. For me, I've had problems through it, and I've grown as I've developed it. Um, I've been too wordy in the past. I try to fit too many words in the same line because I really want to get all this kind of information crammed in there. And as a result, sometimes I have too much information and so too many verses, verses that are too long. And all that does is make long songs, and to me that makes them less listenable. And by the third verse, you're just wishing that, hey, the song would end, or you're expecting it to end because that's what you're used to. When you're listening to songs, you're not expecting 3 verses and 3 or 4 choruses. Um, in reality, not all songs end up working out. That's just the way it goes. We're amateurs, but consider that professionals, not even all the songs that they work on always turn out. And so you have to be willing to let it go sometimes. But, over time, you can improve. I feel like I've improved over the years, especially as I've developed the process. Um, and for instance, in the last year, I've written 8 songs, and I think all of them have turned out quite well. But again, it takes a lot of time. So, and I'm just thankful to God and for this process to be able to work on making songs that help. Um, so sure, it does take a lot of time. But at the end of the day, what are the kinds of songs that you want to produce? Do you want to produce fun and entertaining songs? Well, then maybe you don't need this process. Maybe it's too much work. But do you want to create songs that help generate positive life change? And even if you don't get the chance to perform for hundreds and hundreds of people, or putting up a video on YouTube to share your song, you may find that actually in the writing of it, the person that gets changed is you. So, yeah, consider it. Consider some of the elements of this process, and below, again, at the bottom of this video are notes on everything I've just said and more that I couldn't say here. So you might want to check it out. I hope this has been encouraging for you. Take care.